Well, I mean, one thing we wanted to emphasize, Michael, was, the political, artistic, and sort of the social changes that predicated kind of, I guess, a more liberal attitude toward nudity or to nudity. That's why it was important for us to cover the Hays Code and the Catholic Legion of Decency and what was going on in America. I mean, the Hays Code was really the first form of censorship in US cinema. And it was important for us to basically lay this out chronologically, because I think most people, even, cinema buffs, don't know these periods of time existed, not just in cinema, but in America.
But you chose to specifically concentrate on American movies. Had you taken the same approach to, say, European movies, wouldn't you end up with a totally different story?
Well, I think we do touch on that European movies were much more free with nudity far before, especially the European art films in the 50s and the 60s, and going back to, Otto Preminger and some of these films where, and Malcolm McDowell talks about this, how nudity in Europe was not a big deal. No one cared. You saw it in commercials, you saw it in television shows, but, it took a far, far longer time for it to come to America or to be accepted as not being something that was taboo, or, ooh, I can't believe we're seeing a male penis in a film. This is horrible. No, I think we do touch upon that in the documentary, that this was going on in Europe far, far before. It was more accepted, I should say, than American audiences.
So why is the reason for that? I mean, why is the underlying reasons for penises being taboo in American cinema and not taboo in, say, French cinema? What?
Pam Grier might have summed it up nicely, saying we're a prude country. Americans are prudish, and it's, you can't get away with as much here. And I think it's, in Europe, it's free. People are free. It's easy. There's not this stigma attached to nudity. And I think for a long time in America, and it's lightened up naturally in more recent decades. But in the US, it was, as you said, taboo. I don't know why. America's been more prudish toward films, and Europe hasn't been. But I think that's changed, as you'll agree.
It's interesting. I mean, as human beings, we're programmed to find the sex of the opposite sex attractive. I mean, we're wired that way. Look how we sell advertising. Look, print ads. Where is the point? Where's that thin line between acceptable use of nudity and then unacceptable use of nudity when it becomes pornographic? And actually, the closer you get to that, the more scintillating and the more opportunity for studios to put X's on their movies and make more money. Can you talk about that? How the whole industry is really about making money on nudity, is it not?
Well, I think I can start Jim's answer for him, is sex sells.
Yeah. Well, that's number one. I also think that if you try to create a movie that's going to be NC-17, you're immediately limiting your audience. And I think based on what the boundaries are today, that, just more and more movies have less nudity to be able to make money. Look at this whole, over the last 10, 15 years, the summer blockbuster type movies. You talk about the difference between us and Europe. You see some very violent things in American cinema, and violence, killing, and that may just get a PG-13 rating. But if someone has a full nude scene, even if it's tasteful, that'll automatically get an R rating, which means you're going to have fewer amount of people. The younger kids technically can't come and see that movie. So, that has a lot to do with it. Making money is a big part of
it. Jim, you know a thing or two about nudity. You have got these you've got your websites, Mr. Skin and Mr. Man. Could you, by the way, could you just explain to our audience what they are? And then I want to ask you, when is do you visitors, viewers, what is the ratio? Is the international ratio, the world ratio? Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah. So I've been running MrSkin.com, which is really, if you could think about it in real simple terms, it's an IMDb for nudity in the history of film, female nudity. We try to chronicle. The goal is to chronicle, review, every female nude scene, television movies from all over the world in this one website. That's our goal. We also own a website called MrMan.com, which is the male version of Mr. Skin, which has been operating since 2014. So Mr. Skin, 21 years in a week, and Mr. Man is about 7 years. So, obviously I have a pretty good knowledge of the history of nudity in film. But as far as the audience that comes, if you're asking, it's funny, the great thing about what we do, and the great thing about American cinema is, I don't care if you live in Japan, Germany, France, Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Lawrence or Halle Berry, whoever it is, you're known all over the world, and people are interested in the movies you're in, the nude scenes you're in. So I'm not saying that, obviously the majority of our traffic is American, North American, but we have, lots of traffic from all over the world. And I think it goes because our actresses and actors here in America are popular worldwide, not just in the United States.
My question was whether you think, maybe you don't have the answer, that Americans are more interested in Mr. Man and Mr. Skin than Europeans or other. Well,
are they more interested? Probably because we don't get to see it as much as, say, breast, to someone in France who gets to see commercials with nudity, who could go to the beach and see topless. Maybe seeing someone topless, it's not as big a deal. But I still think, I don't care, I still think there's interest in seeing great sex scenes and great nude scenes, whether you're from France or England or the US. I don't think that they have no interest. In fact, I know it because we get a ton of traffic from all over the world. So I do know they're interested. I just think with us, we just, again, killing and violence is fine, but nudity, it's a little trickier here. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is.
Has the pandemic helped traffic?
Well, quite frankly, I think anyone that owns a business that is internet-based is seeing more business, is seeing more traffic, just because more people are working from home. It's just the way it is. Yes.
I wanted to ask about this Hays Code. The Hays Code was really it was made out to be this overreach by the government, but it was really the film industry giving itself a fig leaf, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was really just, I was going to say, it was a strict guideline for directors, that controlled language, scenery, costumes, which represented the first form of censorship really in US cinema. But that was the moral police. I mean, you wouldn't get your film made if it wasn't for Joseph Bream giving his seal of approval through the code. So it was really an unfortunate period of time in cinema, because everyone was being censored, and this was basically started through the Catholic Church, the Legion of Decency. So thank God for the Howard Hugheses and the Russ Meyers, and the directors then decided to sort of make films and break the code, damn distribution, damn, theater release, and we're still making these movies. But yeah, the Hays Code was really just a moral set of guidelines that were very strict, and obviously changed cinema from, 34 on to the MPAA.
Which would you say, at what point, which film was the one that liberated us from all this Hays Code nastiness?
Well, I think one of the important moments, the answer is two-part. I think when Marilyn Monroe became very famous, and they discovered that she had posed for a pinup completely nude early in her career, and Playboy obviously put it in the first issue. What was significant about that was, prior to that, nudity was considered a bad thing, but Marilyn Monroe treated it as, almost laughed it off as, so what? I'm a beautiful woman. I posed for a pinup, and everyone saw that because that was a big deal at the time, and it did not hurt her career. In fact, it made her even more popular. And I think that was a huge moment for celebrity nudity moving forward. It took a while, and of course, Sophia Loren and Brigitte Bardot, European films, came to the United States and played in art house theaters, which was didn't fall under the Hays Code, and many men went to those theaters, and women, to see those movies. But then I do think that Marilyn Monroe, when she was able to do something completely nude and it didn't hurt her career, I think that was really important beginning. Took a while, but a beginning to where we got to the 60s, and then more and more actresses did nude scenes.
And I think also, Michael, it was important for us to tell the story of the filmmakers that were going against the code. The Russ Meyers and the Doris Wishmans and the Herschel Gordon Lewises that were still making movies, and there were nudie cuties and monster nudies and these nature films that were still being made. So nudity were still, it was being shot for the cinema. But it was important for us to include that in our documentary, that nudity didn't go away. It was just done in different ways and methods by, what they were called rogue or outlaw filmmakers, almost like getting a stag film shown in an underground theater. So it's, to complete the full cycle of the 50s, 60s into the 70s was important for us to say, hey, the Hays Code didn't stop nudity fully. There were still the Russ Meyers including nudity in their films. It was just harder to get your film shown in theaters.